my sister comes right out and says, "Hey, I want you to buy my daughter a car. I know that you have some good financial money and you're married to a rich husband. So do me a favor and buy her a car." Well, it sounds like she has a lot of audacity, right? That's because she does. But it doesn't end there. When I politely tell her no, and instead decide to buy her another very expensive item, she's not happy, and she decides to tell me this. I'm a 37-year-old auditor who earns a nice salary, but I've always been careful with my finances. I made sure to live within my means and only spent on things that were necessary. The fact that I earned what most people would envy did not mean I would lead a reckless lifestyle, where I bought everything that appealed to my eyes. Everything in my life was great, except for the fact that I had no man to share my success with. This was not because men did not take a keen interest in me. Oh, the contrary. I had lots of willing suitors during the prime of my life, but I turned most of them down as I felt they did not check some of my boxes off, what I wanted my man to be. It was when I got into my 30s that I seriously just began lowering my expectations for men. It was around this time, well, where I met Clark. Clark did not earn as much as I did, and though I was not sure if we would even be compatible, I decided to give it a try as I was not left with many options. We began to know each other, and I realized that Clark had a heart of gold. He treated me with love and respect, and that was enough for me. Well, I decided that I was going to settle down with Clark. My older sister, Giselle, on the other hand, had been married to a rich guy for years. They had a daughter named Maya, who was overly pampered from birth. Maya had everything she could ever want, and though I'm not against giving your child the best, it was clear that my sister had groomed her daughter to be a spoiled brat who was overly entitled and looking down on people. I finally announced to my family that I was getting married, and everybody was ecstatic. They wanted to support me financially, and my sister Giselle even offered to foot the entire bill. But my husband refused their offer. He didn't want to look like he was incapable of taking care of me. The mindset is outdated if you ask me. I didn't have any problems with Clark turning down the offer from my family. After all, we could handle the expenses ourselves. But the problem was, Clark wanted to have an elaborate wedding when we didn't have the means to do it. He suggested that we borrow money just to cover the expensive wedding cost. The idea was really stupid, to say the least. Why would Clark turn down offers from my family members only to turn around and decide to borrow money from a bank? I tried talking to him, explaining that it was better to have a small wedding that we could afford, rather than borrowing a bunch of money that we would have to repay later. But Clark seemed to be insisting that it's necessary so we don't look like we're begging about the wedding. He claimed that the way people looked at you was dependent on how you presented yourself to them, and he didn't want people looking at us like beggars. There you have it. It was all about making an impression. I felt conflicted about the situation. On one hand, I wanted to make Clark happy and give him the wedding of his dreams without letting people look down on him. On the other hand, I knew the dangers of borrowing money that we might not be able to repay on time. In the end, I succumbed to his idea and we had a colorful wedding with borrowed funds. The wedding was everything Clark had hoped for, and I was happy to see him so joyous. But as the night came to an end and we said our goodbyes to our friends and family, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. I knew that we've taken on debt that would be hard to repay, and I simply worried about the future. Clark somehow sensed that I was distressed. He tried calming my fears, but deep down, I knew that the road ahead would not be easy. I was right. I spent the next 3 months repaying the debt which we had borrowed for our wedding. A painful and frustrating part of it was that my husband Clark, who had initially told me that, well, we would be all right, did not contribute a dime to the repayment of the loan. As a matter of fact, he had a lifestyle of living way above our means. My family and the friends present at my wedding fell for my husband's game. The colorful event made them think I've gotten married to a very wealthy man, just like my sister. They never knew that I was the one footing most of the bills in the house. My sister Giselle and her family fell for it the most. She called me a few months later to inform me that Maya wanted to come over to spend a month's vacation at her house. In case you missed the whole gist, Maya is my sister's spoiled little daughter, who was raised with everything at her beck and call. I remember the day my niece Maya came to stay with us like it was yesterday. She arrived at her home, which my husband and I had worked hard to buy, with an air of entitlement that I found off-putting. While my husband was happy to have her over, I wasn't thrilled about the prospect of hosting her for an entire month. Maya's arrival coincided with a time when my husband and I were still paying off debts from the wedding, which we had borrowed heavily to finance. Well, I was the one literally making the payments. We were both earning good salaries, though mine was way higher than my husband. Our expenses were still high, and we had to live frugally to make ends meet. I had reservations about how much we could entertain Maya, considering her expensive taste and preferences. But my husband seemed to have no qualms about it. He saw it as a chance to bond with his niece and show her that we were fun and an exciting couple. In his eyes, Maya's visit was an opportunity to prove that we were successful and could afford a luxurious lifestyle, just like her parents could. So, I wasn't so sure, but I kept my thoughts to myself and tried to be accommodating. As soon as Maya arrived, she started making demands, insisting on eating out every night and having her meals prepared according to her taste. She had no regard for the effort I put into cooking, or the fact that we were on such a tight budget. My husband, on the other hand, indulged in her every whim, taking her out to these fancy restaurants, paying for everything. I was beginning to feel like a third wheel in my own home, as my husband and niece bonded over very expensive meals and lavish outings. While I wanted to be gracious and accommodating, I felt like I was being taken advantage of. However, my husband was convinced that it was only for a short time and that things would soon return to normal. I eagerly counted down to the time that Maya's stay would come to an end, as I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. My husband, on his part, was equally anticipating her exit, as he had been financially drained beyond his expectations. I would laugh at the inside each time I saw my husband grumbling and complaining about Maya having overstayed. At least he had finally learned his lesson. We were both happy, and the day she took her leave, we were ecstatic. She had songs of praise to sing about my husband and me, but she never knew had we exhausted our savings on her. It was not up to 2 weeks before my niece Maya began calling us to let us know about her plans to come spend some more time with us. My husband did not need to seek my opinion before diplomatically turning her down. He was not ready to relive the entire experience again. The experience with my niece, however, did nothing to stop my husband from projecting himself as one who is well-to-do. Although he avoided a situation where my niece Maya would come and spend even a day at our home, he still enjoyed the praises which were sung of him by her and her parents. My niece would reach out to my husband on different occasions, asking for money. Rather than deny her, and rather than let her know that he could not meet the demand at that point in time, he would rather take from me and give to her. This was not because her parents did not give her money. It was simply because she had developed an insatiable appetite for money. I was basically the one suffering the whole thing because my husband never repaid any of the money which he took. I would sometimes get into a fight with Clark about the whole thing, but he would always find a way to pacify my anger. 1 year quickly went by, and our anniversary was rapidly approaching. I did not think much about it because I wasn't ready for whatever would result in me making expenses. In fact, it was nowhere in my thoughts until my sister, Giselle, came to visit my husband and me at our home one day. She brought up the question of what we were planning to do for the anniversary, and I quickly noted that we weren't going to plan one because we were both having tight schedules. It was a lie. My sister responded that we did not need to get involved in the planning at all. She claimed to have a friend who was really good at organizing events like this and stuff like that. My husband asked what the pricing was going to be, as though he had the money, so I started sending him a subtle look so he could tell my sister that we were not willing to have a party. But my sister immediately told him that we were not to bother about the expenses. She said she would cover the cost. It was enough to be grateful, but for my husband Clark, he just wanted to play cocky. He remarked that he could have the money transferred to my sister later on in the day, as he did not want it to look like we were trying to take advantage of her. My sister insisted that it was nothing, and my husband didn't even bother dragging the issue of payment. He knew, just as I did, that we could not afford such a party at that point in time. The day of the anniversary came, and my sister absolutely outdid herself. Everything was right on point. The decorations were beautiful, the food was delicious. It was clear that a lot of time, effort, and financial resources had been put into the whole thing. It was during the party that Clark and I finally announced to everyone that we were expecting. Yeah, we would soon be parents of a girl. The party came to an end, but it was quite a memorable occasion. The loving support which my family, especially my sister, had shown to my husband and me was second to none. I would be going to visit my sister tomorrow, just to thank her for organizing my anniversary party. It's the least I can do. Update number 1. I visited my sister as I said I would, but I wish I never did. I got to my sister's house last week to thank her for everything, to ensure that I had a nice anniversary, and in her usual fashion, she noted that it was not a big deal. We talked about lots of things, and we were actually having a nice time, till I asked about her husband and daughter. Giselle replied that they were both fine, and her daughter Maya had gotten admission into a prestigious college, and was making preparations to go. However, she would be throwing her 19th birthday party a few days before she left for school, and she had informed her parents that she needed a car for college. I had lots of thoughts running through my mind, but it wasn't really the time to speak up. I just kept listening to my sister talk, and my sister went further to say that her daughter Maya was contemplating calling my husband and me to ask us to gift her a car as a birthday present. I did not know how to react to what my sister was telling me. It sounded like a joke, because that was just what it was. Was she going to college to live like her father owned the place, or was she going to study? My sister then said it was going to mean a lot to their daughter if we gifted a car. I laughed off my sister's last comment. I was not willing to make a promise I knew I would never fulfill. Ever since I got married to my husband, my whole life had been revolving around settling one of our debts or the others. I thanked my sister for the party once again and took my leave. I got home that day and I informed my husband about the discussion I had with my sister. He freaked out at the fact that my niece could be asking for a car and her parents were encouraging it. I did not fail to inform him that my niece would be calling his line anytime soon to table her request, and that was what happened in the next few days that followed. My niece Maya would call my husband, who would avoid picking up her call as he knew why she was calling. I was really happy to see him play a game of hide and seek with my niece, as it was all his fault. If he had not made people think he was rich, then my niece would obviously not be calling him. My husband was a top salesman of a big automobile firm, and yeah, the pay was good. But with the way he presented himself, it was like he was the one running the whole show. The funny part about the whole thing is that my husband and I just have a gave which we alternated. And he was not the one who bought it. It was the car that I was gifted by the company where I worked. How could we now gift her a car when we were sharing one? Besides, assuming my husband and I decide to grant my niece's wish of getting her a car, we would still not be able to get her one that is to her likings, as her taste is so high. My niece's birthday is in 4 days' time, and the party's going to be strictly by invitation. My sister Giselle sent me what she called a gentle reminder about not missing the occasion, but I knew it was just subtly meaning that, well, my niece was expecting an expensive car. Update number 2, titled, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. I just returned from my niece's birthday, and it's going to be something that I would regret for the rest of my life. As the day for the party drew near, I discussed with my husband what we could get my niece, Mara. The fact that we were not willing to give her a car meant that did not mean we would show up empty-handed. Besides, we felt somewhat indebted to my sister for all she had recently done. My husband and I finally decided that we were going to get her an iPhone. This was not a low-budget gift. The phone cost a lot. I saw it as a befitting substitute for a car, but oh boy, I was wrong. I attended the party alone as my husband was not willing to face my niece. My niece was all over the place during her party. You should have seen her friends, the ones she invited. Girls from rich homes who were equally as spoiled as her. My niece embraced me when she saw me at the party. She was somewhat disappointed that my husband was not with me, though, and I had to cover up for him with a lie. Everything was going well, and as the party was drawing to a close, people started giving out gifts before taking their leave. Her guests were colleagues of her rich father, so she got gift cards amid some other very expensive items. I waited till most of the people had left before going ahead to present my gift to her. I wrapped the phone in a parcel, and though she was surprised as the parcel did not look like car keys, she went ahead to unwrap it in the presence of her friends. But her attitude immediately changed when she saw it was an iPhone 13. She had boasted to her friend that her rich uncle, my husband, was going to get her a car, and that was what they were excitedly awaiting. Mara slammed the phone on the ground, looked at me with anger, before yelling, "I hate you," and ran off crying to her bedroom. Her friends followed after her, and the whole thing had raised dust, and I stood confused while everyone else just watched. My sister Giselle, having seen what happened, did not bother coming to me. She ran off to her daughter's room just to console her and came out a few minutes later to add icing to the embarrassment. The moment I saw her walk towards me, I knew that I would not like the outcome, and I quote, "How could you do this to your niece on her birthday? What law did she break by asking you to give her a car?" What the first thing my sister said to me. I did not know what to say. I struggled to find the words to speak, and I finally found my voice and told my sister, hey, I got her an iPhone 13, but it's just angering my older sister Giselle. She didn't ask for a phone, she just asked for a car. My sister shouted at me right there in the midst of everyone. She began to tag my husband and me as stingy ingrates. If we were stingy, how and why did we go ahead to get their spoiled daughter a phone which cost us a sizable amount of money? I had to leave the party as the embarrassment was just simply unbearable. I'm still trying to get my mind off what just happened this evening. Update number 3. It's been days since I had the embarrassment of my life, and I'm still finding it hard to let it go. My husband Clark has rightfully kept quiet about the whole ordeal because I apportion most of the blame to him. If he did not present himself as something he was not, then we would never have gotten to be the part where my sister demanded I get her a car. For her daughter? Clark did not just keep quiet. He has equally been avoiding money talks with me, or making attempts to get some money from me. I would come for his head later on, but my sister and her spoiled child are people I'm currently thinking of, and it's not for good reasons. The more I think about it, the further I get mad. The fact that my sister and her daughter had an entitlement mentality over the whole thing made it so much worse. So what if my husband and I had the resources to get their daughters a car? So what? Whose business was it if we chose not to? What made them think they had the right and the audacity to question the financial decisions which my husband and I make? I can't recall ever having to place a demand or even make a suggestion on what my sister and her husband did for me. I don't want to sound like the ingrate which my older sister Giselle has painted me to be, as I would always be grateful for everything they've done for me. But the fact that you willingly helped an individual at a certain point in their lives was no reason whatsoever to feel their success and achievements was your birthright. How pathetic! Well, I got a letter of promotion from my office yesterday. I'm being transferred outside the city where I would take over the reins as the authority at our branch office there. This means an increase in pay, another official car, and a house too. I was glad about the whole thing, but it did take my mind away from the stunt my sister and her daughter pulled. I often find myself lost in thoughts about what my entire life and family thought about me. I am not the only one who knows that my niece is spoiled, but no one has ever come forth to talk to my sister about it so far. For me, silence is consent. The fact that they are not saying anything means they're in support of what my sister did. I informed my husband this morning about the letter of transfer and promotion which I received from the office yesterday. I told him that I would be taking the offer. And besides the fact that the package is quite an attractive one compared to my current job conditions, I just feel it's best if I changed environment for the first time. Relocation for my husband and I meant that he would need to join me over there or, well, he would have to stay behind and keep working at his job. My husband Clark was indifferent about it. He said that he was okay with whatever decision I made and was willing to resign from his job if I wanted him to. I sense that he's just trying to please me ever since the party incident. All the same, I think I would go with him, resigning from his work and joining me over there as a result of my pregnancy. I don't want a situation whereby I'd be staying alone with our child while he's somewhere else. My husband has, however, surprised when I informed him that I would be getting a car for my niece before I relocated to my new place of assignment. He doesn't understand my sudden change of mind. Update number 4, 2 weeks later. Hey, I decided that I was finally going to get to my niece, Maya, the new car that she always initially asked for. I paid a visit to my sister Giselle and she received me coldly. She claimed that she had no time to talk to me, but I knew it was a lie. She had been keeping malice with me ever since the saga that occurred during her daughter's birthday. I'd called her before my visits, but she didn't pick up. I got to the house and it took her about 45 minutes before she came to see me. We had barely begun talking when her daughter Maya walked into the lounge, greeted her mother, and went straight upstairs without even saying a word to me. It was though I never existed and her mother was all by herself. My sister Giselle saw the whole thing but did nothing to reprimand her daughter, who had disrespected me for the second time right to my face. I was offended, but I did not let my anger control me. I ignored my niece's display of displeasure and went on to apologize to my sister for the quote embarrassment that I caused her daughter by not getting her a car on her birthday. I know you're surprised that I'd be apologizing when the reverse was supposed to be the same, and you're correct. You probably share the same views with my husband Clark, who looked at me in amazement when I told him that I was planning on apologizing to my sister and her 19-year-old spoiled daughter who had no regard for elders. Giselle initially acted as though her pride was not being massaged by my apology, but she finally gave away when I informed her that I planned on gifting her daughter a car on her matriculation day. It was at that point that my sister became friendly. She began talking about how the whole thing had affected her daughter's image, as she was looking towards owning her car, but noted that she was glad I was finally doing the right thing, which I should have done all along. I bit my lip so hard, trying to avoid saying hurtful things. I went ahead to plead with my sister to keep the whole thing a secret from her daughter and refrain from buying her a car, which I knew she wanted to do after I disappointed them. I made my sister know that the reason I sought secrecy was that I believed it would be better if it came as a surprise. So, I got my niece's details and contacts from my sister, and went straight to my husband's place of work to get her a white Toyota Corolla. Once I've made full payment on the car, I proceeded the very next day to the State Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, to get the car registered under my niece's name. She would soon be going off to college in a few days' time, and, well, her ceremony's less than 2 weeks away. That's when I would want to present her gift to her. I can't wait to see the look on her face when she learns of my surprise. Update number 5, a final update posted by OP. My husband playfully called me a bad witch, and he had his reason. I recently gave my niece the car that she's been whining about, and her mother, my sister, hates me for that. I know you're probably confused, so let me pick up from where I left off. After I had registered the Toyota Corolla in my niece's name, I patiently waited for her celebration day to arrive, and on the day of the occasion, I compelled my husband to go with me, and we went at a much later time. My sister Giselle had informed her daughter that she was no longer getting the car that she had promised her, and her daughter was not happy and willing to be disappointed for the second time as regards to her car, and wanted to know why. My sister went ahead to inform her that her father would be getting her a car once he gets back into the state. The excuse seemed to pacify my niece, but it was such a lie that her mother and I just cooked up together. When my husband and I arrived at my niece's celebration, she was obviously not happy to see us and almost created a scene right then and there. If not for the timely intervention of her mother, my niece Maya would have given my husband and me a second round of embarrassment. After my sister had intervened, I apologized to my niece about my failure to gift her a car when she asked for it. I wanted to make it up. It was clear that Maya would have snubbed me, despite my apology if my sister did not intervene by telling her that I've gotten her a brand new Toyota Corolla as a peace offering, just to appease her and make up for the past. She equally informed her that her father was not going to get her a car. It was just a ploy to allow me to cover up my mistake. As I listened to my sister refer to me and my husband's decision about not giving Maya a car in the past as a, quote, mistake, I could feel my anger rising and my blood boiling. I kept calm as a cucumber, because I knew that the tables would soon be turned. I presented the car to Maya, gave her the key, and told her where she could pick it up the next day. Maya was elated. I suddenly became the aunt of the century, and her mother watched as both she and her friends got into another round of celebration. Giselle thanked me for coming through before my husband and I took our leave. Maya could barely wait for the day to break. She went with her friends to pick up the car, but oh boy, she was surprised when the law enforcement agents informed her that her car had been impounded for over a week as a result of being parked illegally. Maya began calling me like crazy, and I refused to answer because I knew what it was about. She called her mother, who rushed to the scene, and they were told the vehicle, which was registered in Maya's name, was impounded and Maya has to pay a whopping sum. $5,000, or face prosecution from the law. Yes, if you're wondering, it was my plan all along. Once I registered the vehicle, I parked it in a disabled spot where I knew Maya would be charged $250 for the violation. Well, the bill only rose from there. The vehicle was impounded and Maya had to pay for the daily storage cost. There was nothing my sister and her spoiled daughter could do. The longer they delayed payment, the more complicated things got. My sister and her daughter's hatred for my husband and I has only skyrocketed ever since. And guess what? I don't care. At least I gave my niece the car she wanted, right? So, I don't know, maybe petty, but am I the a-hole for getting my niece to fall out with the law by giving her an illegally parked vehicle racked with tickets? I do not think OP could have played this any better. The fact that she still gifted the car out of pure pettiness, but just so she could do her plan of all the tickets, oh boy, that was like a home run out of the park. I was actually pretty happy because I was waiting on the karma. I was thinking to myself, why is OP buying her a car after everything they just went through? Anyways, when it came down to the end of it, karma was served in a $5,000 fine. I would like to hear your opinion of it. I read some comments basically saying, yeah, the $5,000, it was a lot of money, but once she pays that off, she has a brand new Toyota. I would like to hear about that perspective from you guys. Do you think it was still worth it in OP's position? Drop your comments down below in the comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I read stories every single day and try to cover every update that I can find. If you enjoyed today's story, go ahead and subscribe for the channel for daily videos. Have a fantastic day and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.